photographers out there are focused on the business of people?
Well, I have a community of people that are doing it. um, so not many. In the scheme of things, maybe less than 2%. But those 2% are creating sales averages from people that are in excess of 3, 4. Some are doing $5,000 averages from portraits. People are happily spending that and coming back again multiple times because, maybe we focused on them as a family, but then they want to come back and focus on themselves as a couple, or they then refer, people that are close to them because they want them to have that same experience. So not only are people spending well above average, and now with COVID, we're seeing a whole new level of spending because we are, people are now even more in tune to this and are wanting to compensate for what they believe has been taken away from them. There's people that haven't been able to see their grandchildren, families that are separated. There's a lot more need for what we give them because they want to reconnect as a family. And having that third person come in and pretend they know nothing and we don't know anything about them, but asking people why, asking them what is unique about your wife. What do you love the most about her? What is she? How does she? Who is she as a mother? Gives her a gift because somebody's now looking for all the positive things in someone, as opposed to most of the world's looking for drama. And when we start, it's almost like, when you decide you're going to buy a new car, finally you've decided, okay, I'm going to buy this Toyota, whatever it is. You go outside and suddenly you see this car more and more and more and more, whereas previously it didn't really exist in your mind. And I think that as an industry, if we start to reprogram people by asking them questions about what do you love about somebody, what is unique about somebody, what is their gift? When you think about your child, what are 3 qualities that they bring to the world? People begin to become a lot more receptive to seeing that and feeling that. And couples, it changes the dynamics of the family because now they're looking for those gifts. And what we end up doing is creating the best version of that family, that couple, before we photograph them. And I mean, this applies to any industry, really. It's not just photography. Every business that relies on people is doing the same thing. So if we were to adopt this, we've got to remember that when people are deciding whether they want to choose us as their photographer, they are making decisions that are based on multiple levels. And most people are making 7 decisions even before they realize they're making a decision. 90% of our decisions are emotional, whether we like it or not. Okay, and the problem with what's being taught at the moment as an industry is that everything is based on logic. Convincing somebody to come to our studio, convincing them to buy, coming up with the whiz-bang package and the whiz-bang menu of product, as opposed to engaging what is our predominant decision is our logical, our emotional decisions, because there's 2 types of decisions. There's an emotional one and a logical one. And if we can give people enough reasons emotionally to want us as their photographer and to want to buy from us, it outweighs any logic. And I think that's why people are happily spending, because now that we're giving them something that matters to them, something that reminds them of who they truly are as a couple, the price no longer matters. And they leave feeling elated about what's been created for them. And that's why I believe our industry really is not so much the industry, based on selling photos. We really have to be an industry that is focused on people. You can't shut me up when I start, can you, Ronan?
No, Steve, like this is great. This is a great interview because I can just ask the odd questions, sit back here and enjoy the knowledge. I'd like to bring Brad in for a second, though, Steve, if I could, because Brad's in an unusual situation in that he's a mentor on BSA on the marketing side, right? But you're also his mentor and his family business's mentor. And he's got his dad Stan and his mom Shelley and his partner. And Brad told me his story, and I didn't ask Brad, could I ask him this? But Brad, I know when you first interacted with Steve, right? And this is a business now that's in business 40 plus years, right? Third generation. And I remember you telling me you had a conversation with Steve and you were going through everything about your business. Just tell everyone what Steve told you about your business.
Yeah, so I went into that conversation quite confident. We, in my eyes, we ran a successful business, making good profit. I had the conversation with Steve, who essentially broke down my business and told me it was a load of rubbish, essentially. And that my averages were terrible, my business was terrible. I must be doing a really bad job with all my clients if that's all they were spending. So I'd never heard it before. It was completely out of left field for me, and it made me want to meet the crazy Australian man in person, to see what I was talking about. And that was one of the best business decisions I did, was to have that conversation with Steve and to go down that path. Because running a successful business isn't just only having a marketing system, that gets you clients and gets you leads, and that I'm really good at, and I've been doing that for the studio for years and years. I'm teaching that now with BSA, but it's about that sales system as well, and then delivering on the experience. And that delivering on the experience part isn't just taking pretty pictures. That in the grand scheme of things, that's like 5% of what we really should be aiming to do as a photography studio, is actually taking photographs. The rest is delivering on that client experience, like Steve had just said, is actually really connecting with our customers and making them the hero. So often, and we were in the same problem, is that we made ourselves the hero. When you came into our studio, all my dad's awards were on the wall. Nobody cares about them. The only person that cares about them is my dad. Us. Our customers don't care. Our customers want us to celebrate them. They want to be celebrated. So it was that mindset shift that helps. It's helped our business really well.
So Brad, I'm sure your dad's awards didn't get thrown in the bin, right? Where did they end up?
No, we've now moved my dad downstairs. His office is now on our ground floor. Basement level in the studio. So they're all on the wall down there in his office. And it's pretty much floor to ceiling awards and photographs. So he's got his own little happy space to work in now.
So he probably has all his awards on one wall and Bruce Springsteen on the other. Is it a life-size portrait? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Bruce Springsteen is my father's boss. He likes him more than me, but that's okay.
So Jeanine, I want to bring you in because you met Steve for the first time today, right?
Yes.
Your first interaction with his genius. So, and I know you're really client focused, right? Because your clients, you're the only photographer I know that gets 90% repeat business when they put out their marketing funnels, right? And I'm sure Steve has a whole lot of people out there that do that, right? But for that, you have to be doing something right. You have to be focused on the people. Just talk to us about what you've heard Steve talk about. And has there been anything new in there? Or is this all registering to say, actually, I'm doing a lot of what Steve is talking about? Or do you feel that you're too focused sometimes on the product or you and your client's not the hero? Just talk to that for a moment.
I'm coming at it a little different than Brad, because I've heard Brad talk about Steve a lot for the past year, but today was the first time I actually got to meet him. So when we were chatting about this, it was interesting because we were talking about people and talking about the business of people. And do you ever do something you don't realize why you've been doing it, right? So it's kind of interesting because a lot of what he was saying kind of started clicking in my head. I'm like, huh, maybe that's why this is really working, you know, as far as it was maybe 6-ish years ago when I really made the change in the studio to really go after what was important to the parent about the child. And not just, and I was telling to Steve this morning, I had a mental breakdown when I had my second child, that I felt like all the photos I had taken of my older daughter were just superficial. And it was all just about what she looked like, not really who she was. And I couldn't remember who she was when she was little. And I totally lost it. And I realized I was doing that for all my clients. And so I made a shift at that point that I really wanted to focus on the child and the relationship of the parent with the child and what that child was obsessed with, so that the parent would always remember not just what the child looked like, but also what the child was into, what they were passionate about. And as all parents know, it changes fast, right? So what they love this year is out the door next year and something else comes in, but they're all important because that's all what makes up our kids as they grow and change. So when I made that shift, it changed everything in the studio. And I did it out of a mom panic moment. And it worked with my clients and it has really resonated. And so when Steve said that this morning, I was like, huh, well, look at that. I was doing something right. I didn't even know. And it does. It's because it's the questions that we started asking parents about their child and what made them special. What was it that they were, what are they obsessed with? What do you want to remember about your child at this age? Not just what they look like. Right. And so it did. It really changed things.
And I can see by your body language there that you're looking for more great information from Steve. So time to bring Steve back in.
I know, right?
Steve,
yeah. I'll stop talking now. No one wants to hear me talk. They want to hear Steve talk.
Steve, tell us, like, you know what I hear all the time? Like if I talk about numbers or talk about stuff like that, because I approach things similar to you, but completely different because you're an expert in your field. I like to start deep dive into numbers and stuff. And when we start looking at the business side of things, quite often I hear, oh, that'll work in America, or that'll work in China, or that'll work in Australia, or that'll work in India, or that'll work in New Zealand. It won't work here. What do you say to that?
I have to not swear, right? I'm not allowed to. How do I come up with the words? I've been banned from swearing. It's just utter crap. We haven't had a case where their location, and I've specifically taken on some people because they swore black and blue that it wouldn't work. And actually, when I came to the UK, it was a lot of what I was getting. I don't know, who comes to mind, Stuart? I don't know. Who was some of the people that said it won't work let's see if it works in the UK. I've also had people tell me that the town that they live in, and it's hilarious because the Americans say, I live in a small town. We've only got 40,000 people. Like a small town in Australia is 200. And I was just speaking to Jeanine, another Jeanine. She's in the middle of nowhere in Western Australia, in a tiny town of less than 500 people. And she's doing great numbers, consistent numbers. She's done multiple sales over 10,000. And I think the more remote people are, the more they need people like us that will see them as a person. And people will travel. So if you are in a geographical location, that's remote, people are used to traveling, and that's what she's finding. But I've got clients in the UK, we've got clients in Europe, in France, in Sweden, in the Netherlands, Australia, and the results have all been the same when they implement a client-focused business. It seems to be what most successful businesses do. Make it about the people, not the product. If you think of Apple, they don't sell, they're not selling their operating system. They're not telling you about how their operating system is better than everyone else's. They're selling an experience. And it's all about the experience that it provides, how FaceTime brings families together. So our industry is no different, I believe. We have a camera for a purpose, and that purpose is to not just treat people as an object that we can light and pose, but to bring out somebody's soul and to help them find their soul again, and for people to rebuild relationships, because people are in pain at the moment. There's a lot of people seeking connection because we are the most socially connected generation ever that is lonely, because there's a bing, there's a bong, and we get distracted. And the people we love are always the ones that we think we can put in a holding bay and come back to and expect that they're going to be there later on. There's always time. But people are looking for something now. And I think we can fill that void. And I don't remember the question. So did I answer that question? I went on off onto a tangent.
I think you did, Steve. I think you did. But I have another question for you. So it's about mindset. So how do we address the mindset issue of so many? Because it's human nature in a lot of us, right? That when something's not working, we blame everyone but ourselves, right?
Yeah.
How do we have that self-recognition that if something goes wrong, it is our fault and it's up to us to fix it? How do you turn that negative into a positive? You know, that we can, these are just challenges. Business is challenging. How can you cause people to make that switch?
In my mind, if it is our fault, then we're in control. So if we can assume that everything that happens in our business is a consequence of something that we have created, then we are now back in control. And it's the best place to be. So if it's the economy, if it's the country, if it's the population, that's out of our control. But how do we work with what we have? How do we make the best of what we've got? The reality of our business is that we don't need a lot of clients to make a lot of money. The issue I see is that most people are in a state of busyness and creating busyness rather than business. And as long as they are filling their day with stuff, then they feel as though they're doing the best that they can. But if you log every half hour of your day and look at how much of that day was actually dedicated to positive production of money, or if whatever you need, is it about creating the right clients? Was it about creating the opportunities to sell? Was it about marketing? So when people come to me and say, well, you know, I've got no clients, we need to look a month before. What were you doing a month before? What were you doing 2 weeks before? Because it takes time to build those clients in. And then what was your focus? So if the focus was to desperately convince people that you're the right person, then you tend to get people that are also desperate and not really wanting to spend a lot of money. But when your focus and your message is, I'm looking for, let's say your marketing, rather than saying, you know, I've got this special deal, $400 off, if your marketing is more focused towards, I'm looking for dads that need to make more time for their children. You get those people that are connecting to that message, and it tends to bring about a higher quality client because you're targeting the avatar that you're wanting to target. And the conversations leading from those leads are very different to here's a special deal, here's the discount, take the discount. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
But that's becoming very clear about that avatar that you're wanting to attract into your business.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical. But Steve, I have another question for you, right? Because I see this all the time, right? I see this boxing match going on in photographers' heads between the business and the artist.
Yeah. I think
you-
I think that when you decide to become a pro, in every other industry, you're a professional once you start making money from your craft. And there's elite athletes that are at the top of their game that are winning gold medals, and it's when they start earning money from their talents that they then are classed as professionals. And I think our industry needs to replicate that, in that you need to, there's the artist in you, but then there's also that when you're deciding that you're going to be in the business of photography, you need to put on a different hat. So from a business perspective, who am I going to be? And when you're in the business of photography, we need to put on our inquisitive minds and find out what matters to our clients. And it doesn't affect or affect our own style, because you're always going to interpret what they need in your own style and the way that you do things. But I think too many of us are talking at our clients and telling them what we do, as opposed to taking the time to find out what matters to them. And really, you've always got to treat the clients like the judges of the award system. You know, I see people spending so much time interpreting what the judges are looking for this year. And then they enter print critiques and they're learning about what is going to win them an award. Our clients are our judges when it comes to business, and really learning what they want from us, really understanding what's important to them. What are they looking for in these photos this time? The awards and the rewards that they give us is money that they happily pay if we begin to understand those little subtle things that make a huge difference to them. How do they see themselves? It doesn't matter how we see them. It doesn't matter how we interpret it. It's their perception is their reality. And so getting them to talk about what truly matters to them is really, really important. It's not about us truly understanding. And because we're so inquisitive, we want to understand what they want. But the focus really has to be, they don't know what they want. And by us asking these questions, they then go on a self-discovery, because nobody's ever asked them. Nobody's asked them, what is unique about you? What is it about you that you bring to the world? Nobody's ever asked them that. So that lead time of getting them into the studio becomes a time for them to discover what it is about them that they love. And for us to help them really begin to understand themselves. And that's what's most important. We think we have to tell them everything about us, but in reality, they're still discovering themselves. Most people wake up every morning, look in the mirror and hate that person that they've become. So it doesn't matter how well you light and pose that person, they're always going to ask for files with that, because they don't want to commit that person to seeing that person every day. But when we begin to allow them to see the value that they bring to the world and all of those positive things, then they want to surround themselves with artwork, because our job is to help people fall in love with themselves again, and for them to begin to value their relationships. And the more we can do that and help them do that, the more they will want to buy from us, because that then becomes an anchor for that emotion and that celebration. And it sets the standard for who they could potentially be and who they truly are, as life throws shit at them every day. It's that reminder of who they truly are at their core, as a couple, as a father, as a mother, who their child truly is. You know, I look at some of the photos of my kids, you know, and today it's like, oh my God, Princess Bitch Face has risen. they're in that teenage world, but then I look at those photos to remind myself this is who she truly is. And that sets the standard of who I believe my daughter truly is, not this whatever manifestation that she's become today. So, you know, it sets the standard. And I've gone on a tangent again, Ronan.
No, that's okay, Steve, because I'm happy for you. I'm used to going down rabbit holes too, as BSA people will tell you. So we're happy to go down a rabbit hole and come back out, because you haven't really gone down a rabbit hole, but I'm going to bring you down one now, if I can. So my question, Steve, is, so the mission you're on, right, and the journey you're bringing people on, and there's 45 people on with us now tonight, right? But for me, when I look at the industry as a whole, when I look at all the stakeholders in the industry, right, 99.9% of the industry is taking action that nearly encourages the opposite of what you're saying. It recognizes photographers for their genius as artists, not as business people. And human beings being human beings, you know, we want to be recognized. We want to be recognized by our peers. And, you know, we see it all the time at award ceremonies where there's photographers going up and winning awards, you know, and quite often they may not have a business. So is that something we need to address?
I think it's two separate things. I think that recognition sometimes is coming about because it's almost like a false economy, in that people need to feel that recognition. People need to feel accomplished, and it's replacing and making it okay. And, you know, I think it has a place because, you know, we need to take great photos. And we need to learn how to take great photos. It's almost like, you know, Apple needs to build a good machine that works, right, before they can sell the experience. But when it comes to the business, it's our clients that are rewarding us. They're our judges. And sometimes people are finding more accomplishment through their art, through winning the awards. And, you know, it's great to see people celebrated in every level. But there's also, you know, that in my head, if there was an award for the most sellable photo, the most sellable album or portrait box, that would delight me, because, you know, provide me the brief from the client, provide me the album to see whether we've met the brief, and then provide me the testimonial from the client, because that everything has got to marry up. So yes, you can take a brilliant photo, but there's a whole other skill involved in helping a client discover themselves and come up with something that they really connect with emotionally, and something that matters to them. So, but there isn't that award. So, but normally it's the closer we get to that, I'm finding that the higher the average sale tends to be of that studio. And when you're saying that 90% of what's being taught isn't that, it's no surprise, because most of the people that I train that get this and are implementing it are in that top 1% of income earners. And it's no surprise. I think I was really lucky 2 or 3 years ago in meeting Graham, who ran a senior photography business, and he had to photograph 40 seniors in 10 weeks, 400 seniors in pretty much 10 weeks. And he came to my workshops and like, okay, this is great, but how do we implement it? Like, how do I implement it over 400 people that we are about to start in 2 weeks? And I said, well, you can't. I think what you need to do is pick people that you're going to do it properly on, and do it properly rather than dilute it. And it was awesome to see, because we then had a way of numeric, and I'm a chartered accountant, so I'm into the numbers too. Like, primarily, I'm a chartered accountant who bought a photography business, who I didn't hang around photographers. So I had no idea that we weren't allowed to make money in our industry. So nobody told me that it wasn't possible. So I just thought I had a business and just treated it like that. So the great thing about working with Graham was that we had a large section of clients that never received a phone call, and he did business as he normally did. But then we had a sample of people that actually he implemented this mindset, this strategy. And it's incredible because here I now have a studio where the photography is the same. He had all these different backgrounds. He was on 5 acres and created all these different backgrounds. So that was all the same. The only thing that changed was the focus on people and calling the parents, asking them what was important to them, talking to the seniors at a different level. And what they found was that they had a lot less pushback by the seniors of having photos of themselves up on the wall. Parents became more stronger and more adamant that they did want it. And it brought families together. And numerically, the average sale was 5 times in comparison. Now, 5 times was only the numbers because when he didn't make the calls at a high rate of no-shows, I think they had a 20% rate of no-shows between no-shows and no sales. Okay, so if you eliminate those, right, and don't include them in the sample, so really it was more than 5 times, because in my head, if you've done all the work and you've set aside the time, then that should be included as a 0 sale to bringing down that average in my world. But that's not how we work, because we want to lift our averages, and so they're reporting it. But in reality, it's a lot more. So of the people that got the phone calls and we connected with, everybody showed up and everybody ordered. And that's the difference.
Yeah, my pet hate, Steve, is this average sale thing, because when someone says to me, oh yeah, my average is 9,000, my first question is, so how many made up that average? How many sales did you have last year? Because if you've got an average of 10,000, you've one sale, you don't have a business, right? But that's celebrated too, and that's encouraged in our industry to talk about our average, but not the volume that's driving that. But I'd like to bring Brad in for a second, because Brad, we were talking the other day and you were mentioning another conversation you had with Steve. In fact, Steve, Brad can never stop talking about you. So just
okay.
So you know. So Brad, you said that, Steve was talking to you and you were talking about your boudoir clients, and Steve said
fear every time you start this. I'm in fear of what's going to come out.
Brad said that Steve asked you a question. So Brad, I presume all the partners or husbands come to the boudoir sessions, right? Or come to our part of the process. And can you just tell everyone what your answer was, what you then did, and the difference it made?
Yes. So when Steve first asked me that question, it was actually one of the first questions he asked me when he told me my business was a load of shit. He said, I
told you your business had lots of opportunity, because you're doing such a crap job and you still think you're earning a ton of money. Imagine how much more opportunity there is when you do it properly. That's what I said.
I'll positively reframe that for the future. But when Steve was telling me all about the opportunities I had, that was one of the ones he highlighted. And he said, I assume you're phoning all the partners and they're coming along to the shoots. I went, no, we don't phone the partners. Why would we phone the partners? And then he told me about why. I then went and took that to my mum and to Ruth, who do the calls. They both thought it was an absolute ludicrous idea. And why on earth would we want to phone their partners? And that's not going to work, because, they're all doing it for a surprise. We were adamant that every woman that was coming to our studio for a boudoir shoot, it was a surprise for their partner. It really wasn't until we started speaking to them and asking to actually speak to their partner that they let us, or they told us that, oh yeah, it's a surprise for him, but I've actually already told him already. It's been a surprise for 2 days. And then by speaking to the partners, we managed to form better connections. We're actually getting them into the studio with them to share in that experience. And we're not having roadblocks in the sales room when we're doing our design consultations. And a big thing for us is over Christmas, I ran a really big marketing campaign selling gift experience vouchers. 2/3 of everybody that bought them were men, buying them for their wives and girlfriends, partners. So when we phoned them to book them in, we had our first conversation with the man straight away. It was fantastic, you know. And then now it's doubled our workload in terms of call time, but we're getting so much more value for the customer first of all, and then for us when they actually come into for the shoot and then in their design consultation as well.
So Steve, tell us about the dynamics that are going on there. What dynamics are going on when Brad's business involves the partner of the woman coming in for the boudoir shoot?
Well, I think, my studio was predominantly boudoir as well. And what we found was that most women would come in and say, oh, it's a surprise. But by the time they've come in, they've told their partner. And as far as the dynamics go, having your man stand up for you and tell you what he loves about you, and for him to get involved in possibly for the first time hearing what it is about you that he absolutely loves, gives that relationship a whole new life. And for some people, it's the first time they've ever heard any of this. For him to be present in the design consultation, and for him to make a stand for her when she's saying, oh, I don't like that, whatever it is, and for him to stand up and say, no, that's actually what I love about you. It's a gift. And the result we found, and I don't know, because Brad, don't have access to Brad's numbers, we found that it tripled our average sale. So of those people that we involved the husbands with, it not doubled, but tripled it. And we had a lot of clients that would come in, a lot of women that would say, don't worry, I can spend whatever I want. He won't care. But they're a partnership and they're partners. And yes, she can spend what she believes she's going to spend right now. And because they're in a partnership, there's that limit. There's that limit that she can comfortably spend before she will consult him, because they are partners. They are doing things together. They do live life together. But when you have both of them in there and they can both make that decision, and it's not just about having them there. When you involve him from the beginning and he believes he's contributed to that end result, and these photographs are reflecting how he sees his wife, how he sees this person he loves, then rather than us ambushing him in the design consultation room, he feels as though he's contributed to this, and he's made small decisions about what he would like to have along that journey, rather than us ambushing him right at the end and asking him for his wallet. So men get very guarded when they feel trapped or tricked. And so when we involve them from the start and we get him to express what he loves about her, they begin to see the wall art on the wall even before we photograph them. And as a combined unit making that decision, that's why we were getting triple, because they were both there from the beginning, not just at the design consultation. So we're not just bringing them into the sale. He's actually contributing to, we want to see her through his eyes, because asking somebody to describe themselves is really difficult and people get very uncomfortable about describing themselves. But most people are very comfortable about telling you about somebody else that they like or love. So we get a purer vision of who this person is through the person that loves them. And for us to see her through those people that love her, and maybe that's a best friend, maybe that's a mother, maybe it's a combination of these people, because who you are as a best friend is very different to who you are as somebody's partner. Who you are as a daughter is very different to who you are as a mother or a lover.
And Steve, you said some really important stuff there, because so many industries, right, look to have what we have. They want to find a way that their clients can co-create with the business, because they know if they can involve their clients in co-creation, that that attachment to what they provide is so much greater. And that's what you've just talked to, right? Is we've a massive opportunity to involve our clients in co-creating what we do.
Yeah, we do. And nobody wants that phone call after, she's come in and spent the money, from the husband saying, what the hell have you done? Why have you tricked, you've taken somebody vulnerable and exploited them. Nobody wants that call. So involving them from the very beginning just squashes all of that, and it becomes a collaboration. And when everybody's rowing the boat in the same direction, we get a lot further. So bringing people, bringing them on board, handing them an oar, and let's row together. Let's create something together. I want to see her through your eyes. I want to see and understand what it is that you fell in love with. When was that moment that you knew this was the woman you wanted to spend the rest of your life with? What is it about her in that moment that you absolutely knew? And for most women, it's the first time they've ever heard it. And for most of the guys, men are conditioned to be a vault, right? You pretty much have to stick 4 sticks of dynamite in them to get them to open up. But, the harder we dig, the bigger the treasure. And if we believe in people and we believe in ourselves and know that there is a hidden gem inside of everybody, then we become relentless, and we can find a hidden treasure inside of everybody. Because as artists, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create something magical for everybody. And without a soul, without those photographs having a soul, all we're doing is creating 2-dimensional images. But when we add the emotion, add that extra layer, add what means, that meaning behind what that photograph means to somebody, everything we create becomes 3-dimensional in the eyes of the client, and it becomes more valuable. And when everybody has a say, and, with the seniors, calling the fathers up and asking them about their daughters or their sons, they're in tears. They're in tears because nobody's ever given them permission to talk about that. And for them to express what their children mean to them, because there's a lot of guilt held in trading time for money. And so we give them that opportunity. And why would they not want to buy? Why would they not want to come? Why would they not want to, contribute? Because most of the time our industry pushes them into a corner and then blames them for kiboshing the sale. So we want to do the opposite.
So Steve, on the photography think tank, when you were on it last year, you said one thing that stuck in my mind, and it was that I think you said something like the sale is 90% complete or fully complete before the photographer lifts the camera, if they do their job right.
Yeah, it is. Because the clients need to see themselves actually wanting to buy from us before we pick up a camera. If we do our job properly, they can see those photographs. When they're describing that person that they love, they're already seeing it on their wall. And when we ask them where they would love to display that in their home, before we quote them, we're anchoring that emotion, not photo, not artwork, not canvas. What we're doing is we're anchoring that emotion to a specific location in their home. So if they've been talking about a child that they love, and we've asked them to tell us what is unique about that child, what do they love the most, and we ask them, where would you love to display that, so that every day, the moment that child opens up, they know that they have the confidence to face every day, where would that be? And if they choose it's going to be above that child's bed, every time they walk into that room, they're seeing that photo that's missing, because we've anchored that confidence, not the photo, not our work, not a frame or a canvas. We've anchored confidence to that location. And every time they pick up their child, every time they put that child to bed, they feel as though something's missing, and we can't handle a void. And so they're making those buying decisions multiple times per day leading up to the shoot. So it's all about finding that emotion and allowing them to find a place where they want to display it well before. And then that's done in their mind. When you tell them the number, they've heard that number multiple times. So it could be $1,200, it could be $2,000, it could be $500, whatever that is. But if the client is totally convinced that that's going to happen, it's not going to be a shock when they come in and buy that from you, because they're making those buying decisions over time rather than us avoiding it, which is what I see a lot of, and then expecting somebody to just whip out their credit card for $5,000 and they weren't expecting it. It becomes real because it's important to them.
So Steve, this is flipping the whole process that many photographers currently use on its head, right? Because what you're saying to us is that if you do your job right, and you discover the relationships that are important, you anchor where those relationships are going to be reflected in the family home, and that you're creating that desire before the camera is even lifted. Does that mean that then the photographer, when you're creating, when you're reflecting those important relationships, that you're altering your process of your shooting to reflect those relationships? Because there's going to be different family dynamics going on all the time, right?
Yeah. What we're affecting is how those people present themselves. So when we ask these questions, people begin to receive each other differently. And so what we're affecting is that couple and who they present themselves as. So your style is your style. And of course, it's the same as when we photograph a good friend. When we photograph a good friend, because we believe we know them intimately, we photograph at a different level and we're looking for different things. What happens is every single one of your clients, we probably know them better than we know our friends, because, asking a stranger things is a lot easier sometimes than asking somebody that you believe you know really well. And so then you're beginning to look for those little details that they've told you are important to them. Will what you photograph change? Yes, it will. Because now, rather than spraying and praying and hoping that you're going to hit a target. So if I was to say to you, I've hidden a little yellow dot somewhere in this room behind me, because this is actually a real room, not a pretend one, green screen. And that represents the sweet spot of what people are wanting from us. If you find out where it is and you photograph just that and every detail around that, then people get excited and people want to buy from us. But if we don't know, then we end up photographing everywhere and may never, ever hit the sweet spot. And that's when we get, can I have files with that? Because nothing was important enough for them to want to display it. So if we take the time to find out where the sweet spot is and what's important to them, and we photograph that, it also leaves us the opportunity to then photograph another sweet spot, because people are like diamonds. We're just not a single flat surface. We have many facets that make up who we are as human beings. And there's multiple reasons why people should be celebrating who they are as a father, who they are as a mother, who they are as somebody else's child. And so who they are as a couple is very different to who they are as a parent, as parents. Who they are as a sibling is very different to who they are. So people are like diamonds. There are many facets that make us who we are, and each one of them is important. But we need to focus on that one part of what they want to focus on right now, because that's what they want to connect with right now.
So Steve, I know we could stay here for hours, and I know in your own business, in Steve Saporito Education, 1 hour meetings turn into 4.5 hour and 5 hour meetings on occasion, I believe. I haven't had the pleasure of that, but I'm conscious of the fact that we've sort of told everybody we'd be on for an hour, and this is only the first outing that we're doing together. Steve Saporito Education and Business Success Academy. Jeanine or Brad, is there any last questions in the chat before we call today a wrap? And then hopefully next week on Clubhouse, it will accept us in and we won't have broken the server with everyone queuing up to
I
get
want
in.
to think we broke the server, so that's pretty good.
We broke the server. We definitely broke the server.
You broke it.
We've got no questions. I don't know if anybody wants to.
No questions.
In the chat, and then we can ask it out.
We didn't tell anybody that they could ask questions either. So I suppose if anyone's got any questions, maybe just pop it in the chat and let's hear from people.
Some people are saying they prefer Zoom to Clubhouse. So yeah.
And this was last minute, so nobody was ready. I'm glad I put a shirt on this morning because it was like 6 a.m. 6:30 a.m. when we got together. Just got up out of bed.
Yes, indeed. So is there any questions anyone has?
I have a question.
Sure.
Evening again. So there might be a few of us in this group, but I'm actually in Steve's group as well as Ronan's group. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Steve for a couple of years now. Steve, what plans have you got to get back over to the Northern Hemisphere and deliver your classes in person again?
Well, at the moment, the government shut any of that down. So as soon as I'm allowed, I will come back. But I'm creating some new courses so we can move it online in between times. Between that, and I think some people may prefer smaller chunks of information over a longer period of times, because normally I cram 3 days with a lot of information. So I'm creating some 6-week courses, some 8-week courses, and some 12-week courses. So then that way people can pick the level that they want to work at. And there'll be different levels. So, the starting concepts and then more advanced. And, now we've got people that are employing multiple people. So we need to start coaching people on leadership and how to hire people and recruitment and all of that sort of stuff. So because, as the businesses are growing and we're seeing exponential growth right now, it becomes important that we become business owners and managers. The one thing that I forgot to mention, Ronan, and Stuart, so I hope you're doing this too, is that when we do involve the partners and we do this, and we were talking about them visualizing and the sales done before we actually pick up a camera, for those people that were okay with entertaining this concept of allowing people, because right now people are starving for ways of feeling as though they're giving themselves a gift or rewarding themselves. So we've had quite a few of my members now entertain the thought of, why don't we just ask them to prepay for their artwork? Because if they're seeing it on their wall and they're desperate to have it and they're looking for ways to give themselves a gift or give their wives a gift, after a workshop, we had one person say, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And she had 5 people the next day, purely because she opened herself up to the possibility. And I think she took $7,000. When Melbourne shut down, I said to Lorraine, I don't even know if Lorraine's on here, I don't give a shit that Melbourne shut down and we're not allowed to leave the house, and we're only allowed out 5 kilometers. You're not allowed to see anybody. I want you to make 20 grand next week. Now, she only came up with 17 that week, but it was all from prepayments. It was all from going back to their clients, because everybody's had that client that says to them, oh yeah, I'm just going to get this for now and I'm going to come back and get something later. Well, later's come round right now. Okay. They've now got the time because they're sitting at home doing nothing. The guy, they're there as a family. They're desperate to speak to us. Why not start calling all those people that should have bought more? And that's all she did. And just redo the design consultation over Zoom. We've got no excuses. We can still, I've had lots of people make more money through shutdown because now they've had to put their camera away and focus on the business. And it's been incredible to watch exponential growth during a time that they can't photograph. Some people have had the best year they've ever had because of shutdown, because now they're picking up all the money that they've been leaving on the table for years. So that's the possibility for a lot of people when you allow people the opportunity to do this. So Stuart, you're nodding your head at me. Like, do you agree with all of this stuff?
Yeah, I do, Steve. And Steve kind of alluded to this at the beginning of the chat. Was there anyone on his course that perhaps didn't believe it all to start with? And I may have been guilty of that. And I'm
only a little bit.
Well, various people have tried to help me run my business before, haven't they, Ronan? But the top and bottom of it is that everything Steve says is true, but I've found in my experience that you can take parts of it and you can implement at your own pace. So I've done all of Steve's courses. I've hosted some of Steve's courses, and my staff have done them as well. And we're all big fans of what we've learned, and our averages have improved dramatically in the period. But we're still in the foothills compared to where we can go. And in this lockdown, we've implemented loads of new changes, new price lists, new structure of how to deliver the prices. I've been doing a lot more phone calls than ever. But I've found that even the team, we'll often just say, what would Steve say? And just be more Saporito, and it has a positive effect through the business. So even if you just take small parts of these teachings or implement that at your own pace, I guarantee you'll see an improvement. It's worked amazingly for us, and I can't wait to get the next stage going.
Can't wait for you to share.
Is that fair? Is that a fair? No problem.
Yeah, just fail faster and get on with it.
Yeah, smile and dial.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone. Yeah.
We're all gonna take something and not do it well. It doesn't matter. The fact that people hear your intention louder than what you're doing. So as long as the mindset is about helping people and about making their day better and about them making, feeling loved just that little bit more, who cares if you've done it the right way or not? It doesn't matter. Nobody knows.
We learn more from our failures than our successes, don't we? So, Carl, I want to bring you in. You have a question.
Yeah, I'm really interested. Enjoyed hearing you talk tonight, Steve.
Thank you.
I love the concept of, with boudoir clients, getting the boyfriend, the husband involved before the session. Now, we're a family portrait studio, so the dad can often be the roadblock in the sales room for us. So, have you got any advice on how you'd include both parents before the session?
So this is for the family. So for family, is that what you're saying?
That's right. Yeah.
For families or for boudoir? For families. Okay, sorry,
Family.
I got confused. So when you're talking to the mum, asking her questions about what he loves the most about spending time, and sometimes it's rare, so you got to make that okay. Because a lot of men, they put their career, they're building their career and they're not spending as much time as they should. So you've got to make that okay. And I know, just say to them, look, I know it can be rare sometimes, but when he does get to spend time with Jonathan, what is it that he loves the most about that? What does he love about spending that time with him? And take her down that journey, because there comes a point where she's just not going to know. And what you've done is you've created and opened a void for her that she just can't help but want to know. And so then you're opening up that possibility to say, hey, do you know what? I'd love to see how he sees his son through his eyes. What's the best number for me to call him? Because this is a family session, and I'd love for him to be involved, and for us to hear how he sees his children, what he loves about them, what are those special moments. So often when we talk to the parents, this used to happen all the time, because we did families as well, but predominantly we were boudoir. The wives would say, oh my God, he loves taking them to the park and they love to wrestle, all this shit that, you know, is superficial, really, right? But then you talk to the husband and he goes, yeah, I love taking them to the park. But that moment where we leave the house and we walk through the gate and he reaches for my hand, that's my moment. Because the minute we leave the house, when he looks up to me for that security, I'm just so proud to walk down the street with him. And that's the goal. That's the yellow dot. So guess what that family spent nearly $2,000 on? Just a detailed shot of the hands. That child reaching for his father's hand. And then, you know, we then placed, you know, other photographs with it, with the collection. But in her mind, it was about wrestling. It was about, you know, all the physical stuff. The fact that he tapped into his emotion and the fact that he had something to say emotionally, that was gold and a gift for her and for that child. And for that child to grow up knowing that dad contributed to a piece of wall art that then becomes their legacy, that's incredible. Rather than excluding them, bringing them in, open the curiosity first, give that permission, and then, you know, it's our job. A client shouldn't have to lift a finger. She shouldn't have to speak to him. We should be speaking to him because we're providing service. So we need to treat our businesses as if it was a 7-star hotel. We should be anticipating what our clients need. And our clients don't want to tell their husbands how much this is going to cost. Trust me, that's our job. And only we can deliver that and know that it's happened. Right. And the problem is when we send our clients a price list, you know, half the time they don't read it. They don't half the time when I get price lists to check, I don't understand it. We make it so confusing. There's too many options. It's all logical. So what you're doing is you're getting them to an emotional place and they're falling in love with that moment that he's just described, of that child reaching for him and him being so proud, and then slapping him in the face with logic and saying, okay, now let's get real. How much money are you going to spend? As opposed to then asking, where would you love to display that in your home, that connection, that security that you have? So where would you love to display that? So talking about the emotion, sorry, rather than the product. Sorry, go.
Yeah. No, so because that pricing and product is an important part of the conversation. So you would only really focus on the price of the product that they have described to you when you're talking about pricing. So they said, right, I want it above the sofa.
No, you're talking about pricing in relation to the emotion.
Right. Okay.
So it's not about, oh, and for that you get five photos and they're all fully framed and nobody gives a shit. What they want is for them to feel that connection with their son. So the pricing structure, I'm sort of a little bit, again, everything I do is the opposite of what our industry seems to do. So let's not open up a whole other can of worms with pricing. But keep it simple. Pricing, you know, should be simple, and we need to verbally tell them how much they're going to spend for that piece. Yeah, for that emotion that's going to be, because that way they hear it. But if you avoid it and say, oh, here's our price list, just choose what you want, they don't know what it is. They don't. Right.
So, thank you.
So Steve, we've 2 more questions before we call it a wrap. These are the last 2 questions.
So we've got 3 hours to go. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
So Robert wants to know, Steve, he says, it's a brilliant presentation, right? And you've talked to this a little bit already, but he says, did you come up with all these ideas gradually, or did you have a specific moment which led to your epiphanies?
I still am coming up with stuff, and I'm still learning. The more I deal with people, the more this is evolving. So the workshops I did 6 months ago were nothing like what I do now. But the epiphany I had was in my own studio. We had a mum call, and we normally do the spiel. I gave my staff the spiel, the script. Prices start at, the average person spends, most people want, all that crap that, we're told that we should be doing. But I had a mum call, and she said, I want a photograph of my daughter. And just the way she said it, her voice was trembling. And rather than go into the spiel, I sort of got hooked into, oh, this woman's getting emotional. I need to find out what this is about. And so I asked her, so what is it about your daughter? Why now? Why is now the perfect time for her to have a photographic experience with us? And she said, we've just moved from Adelaide to Melbourne. And when we were in Adelaide, she was the most popular girl in school. She had all this confidence. And we've taken her away from that because my husband got this great promotion, and she's being bullied and she's lost all her confidence. And I just want to give her a confidence boost. I just need somebody to make her feel beautiful, make her feel, like it was just a confidence boost, because we were doing hair and makeup. It was it was a glamour studio back then. And so, I said to her, great, okay, I want to talk to her. And this was the first time I actually talked to, one of the kids. And I asked her, look, Mum's doing this for you. We want to create a great experience for you. I want to know from you, when is that one moment that you absolutely feel confident? That one time that truly represents how confident you can be. And she described, she was a violinist, she was on a stage, and she loves the fact that she can be on stage and get lost in her music. And that's when she feels the most confident. And she said, Mum and Dad usually come. Dad can't be there as often. But I play to him even though he's not there. Oh. And then that sparked me up to say, right, I need to speak to Dad to find out what he loves. Anyway, it's the long version. Let's cut it right to the end. After we did the experience for them, she came in, she had the shoot. We photographed her with her violin and reflections of Dad in the violin, all that sort of stuff. Mum rang 3 weeks later and said to us, you can't imagine how this has changed our life. Every day my daughter walks out of the home, we've put the canvas, they bought a canvas collection right beside the front door. And this is the one thing that started this whole thing. She said to me that every day when my daughter leaves the house, she looks at those photographs and fills herself up with the confidence to face every day. And she now has found 2 incredible friends and is a completely different person. And in my head, I was like, well, that's what I want to do. I don't want this spiel. I don't want to just slap on makeup and cover up flaws and, make people flawless. I want to make a difference. I want this to be more than just putty and polyfiller and paint. I want this to be an experience where this becomes an anchor for their future possibility. And so that's how this has all come about. Did I answer that question, Ronan?
Yes, you did, Steve.
Great.
Last question, Steve, of tonight, because we're going to be on Clubhouse every Tuesday, guys. So we've plenty more of this coming. So,
or Wednesday for if you're an Aussie.
Yeah. Wednesday,
because we live in the future.
In more ways than one, Steve. In more ways than one. So let's just talk about Dawn's question, just the last question. So she wants to know, doing the design consultations as you call them on Zoom versus in person, have your clients seen a big difference there in terms of spend?
No, the difference hasn't. They're still spending, but I think because the environment's changed. in that people are craving a lot more connection now, and even that Zoom connection. But I think that as things open up, what we've seen in Melbourne, because now we're at zero, we've got 0 cases, and we've had 0 cases for quite a few months. As the studios open and we're bringing people back in, so the sales on Zoom were great. There was no real difference in averages, but then, and we're probably ahead of most of the world right now because we've now opened up after COVID. There's 0 infections. People are feeling more confident. Sales averages have gone up 60 to 80% in those studios. And we're seeing better attendances because people have been craving what we do. And we've had a lot more time to spend on the phone with them. And we've used the time in lockdown to reconnect these families and to build up with those relationships. So what we're seeing is, yes, we could do it on Zoom, but now that they're coming back in to the studios, they're spending even more. So those studio averages, and maybe it's because they're spending more time going through the content and learning more about, like what Stuart was saying, he's using this time to, educate his staff and to train his staff and to get the systems in place that he didn't have time to do in all of that busyness. And you've still got to run a business. And sometimes implementing all of this is almost like trying to turn the Titanic. The ship's going this way. You can't just spin it around on its head. So you've got to implement what you can when you can. But with lockdown, it's given people a lot of opportunity to implement stuff that perhaps they haven't had the opportunity to do up until this point. So even with Brad, we're working on the shoots, practicing flattering people, practicing getting the brief, and shooting to brief. And it's shooting for product is a very different thing. Making sure that you're shooting for your product. So, wedding photographers get it because they've got to shoot for the album, but portrait photographers don't seem to think about it as much. So, in my group, I have specific collections that I know sell. So you've got to shoot for that product in order to be able to deliver the product, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense, Steve. So on that note, I think we should call tonight a wrap, or this morning a wrap for Steve. I know you have to get some children to school, Steve. They're going to be late now because we were supposed to be finished half an hour ago.
That's okay.
So we will be back on Clubhouse next week. Thank you all for joining us. Sorry for the taking the Clubhouse server down, but we promise we'll try not to do that next week. But stay safe, stay healthy, everybody, and we'll see you all again soon.
Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.